For the second time in less than a week, we got to see the Tar Heels in action, and this time it was against a formidable group of alums. How'd it go? Let's find out.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, June 26, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea, joined by our good friend and weekly collaborator, Coach Pat Kilby. And you're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. We really appreciate it. Special shout out to all you everydayers out there and all the great members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, Pac, we got to see on Tuesday was camp session 2, the scrimmage of the alum versus the current players. This time around, it was a more legit split. Last week, there weren't really enough alums in town, so it wasn't like current versus alum. This time, it was. We got a more true game. The current team wins it 71-66. It was a game to 70. Great stuff there, and it was awesome because once again, this same YouTube person put it up, and we got to watch it. In fact, I'm coming into this having just watched it. So, Pac, this is pretty similar to like one of our live postcasts that we do, and I love the energy of that. So, we kind of just took notes, folks, as we watched through it, and we're going to unpack this in a pretty organic conversation. I always love these kind of conversations. Pac and I both do, and so that's what we're going to do. Let me just give you quickly the rundown of who was playing. First off, for the current team, it was all 11 scholarship players. They were all in there. RJ Davis, Seth Trimble, Jalen Washington, Elliot Cadeau, Zayden High, Jalen Withers, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, James Brown, Cade, Tyson, and Ven-Allen Lubin. For the alumni, they really had 6 guys that played the majority of minutes. Cole Anthony, Danny Green, Brady Manek, Luke Maye, Justin Jackson, Kenny Williams, with the little side of Paxson Wojcik getting a couple minutes in the second half there. So Pac, right out of the gate, what, as you look at this, I think the thing that most people are going to be buzzing about, just like what we talked about last week, is going to be the freshmen, right? Because everybody likes what's fancy and new and shiny, but it's like, I think there's some legitimacy to what we're seeing, particularly, obviously, with all due respect to James Brown, from both Drake Powell and Ian Jackson. Is that where you want to start this conversation? Because it seems like the place to start it to me.
Yeah, 100%. I think those two guys are. They're certainly, when I watch it, I'm really keying in on them, see how they're fitting in, and how they play against the alumni and play with their teammates. I'll tell you, the one that stands out the most to me right now is Drake, and I didn't necessarily anticipate that. Because Ian's kind of had more of the height, but Drake has got just some things you can't really teach. I mean, golly, I've seen him on film, but seeing him again, his arms are just ridiculously long. His defensive versatility stood out to me. And then he hit some threes. And so, which is what I was telling you before we started the podcast, but I'll say it again is, if he's bringing that to the table, then that takes us to another level. Because, with Drake, I was thinking, we're going to get mid-range. He's going to be a slasher, but he's going to be really versatile defensively and even help with rebounding some. Now I'm feeling like, which, granted it is a scrimmage and there's not a whole lot of stake, or not a whole lot at stake, but the way he shot the 3 ball confidently and, his release looked good. I was real impressed with that. So if he brings that to the table, then Isaac, I think he may be the biggest impact player of the freshman class.
What's funny, Pac, is I have intentionally, like you and I have not talked about this, and I didn't want to say it to you because I don't think you caught this show yet. But last week when I talked to Coach Rob, who's boots on the ground, right, at camp right now, and I said to him, which of the freshmen is most impressive? And he didn't hesitate. And he said exactly what you just said, Drake Powell. And it's not that Ian is not, it's just that what Drake brings all around, right? Like, it's not just the offense, it's the defense, it's all sorts of stuff. And he's just like, I don't know if I'd say light years, but he is far ahead of where Ian's at, particularly defensively. And I think that all around game is what speaks to that. Pack, there was a couple things I wanted to hit on with Drake as well before we move to Ian. Two things in particular. Number one, when the second unit came in, and we'll talk about the starters here in a minute, but the second unit comes in and it's Drake running the point. It was not Ian Jackson. Now, to be fair, Elliot Cadeau, RJ Davis, and Seth Trimble were all starting in this game. So none of them were there to run the second unit. But it was interesting that Drake was the one that got tapped to do this and did it consistently. So there was that. But then you talked, Pack, about his three-point shooting. And there was this stretch midway through the second half where he hits a corner three. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was off a laser pass from Jalen Withers to the opposite corner, buries that. Next possession on defense, he gets ISO'd onto Justin Jackson. Everyone clears it out, and he stays right with him. J-Jax kind of backs him down in the paint. Drake, with these ridiculously long arms, gets up and is able to alter the shot. And then you go back down, and as you were alluding to, Drake hits another three, this one from the wing. And so it's like, dude, that is the all-around package there encompassed in 3 straight possessions, man, and you love to see it.
Yeah, he's, in baseball, they talk a lot about like the 5-tool player. And yes, he's kind of that way for basketball. He's just, he may not like have this one area that he just stands out. Oh, he's great at this. But all around, he is just so solid. There's not a lot of weakness. And I think he's pretty dependable. You know what you're going to get with Drake. And to me, that gives him a leg up right now. Whereas like Ian, we know he can be electric with the ball in his hand, but there's still some holes. Yeah. So I really like where Drake's at. But Ian has done some great things too. So we can spend some time talking about him.
Do it. Go to Ian. Let's do it.
Yeah, he's been really electric. I think that's the perfect way to describe him. He's at times, I will say, not to be offensive in any way, shape, or form, he does give me a little bit Caleb Love vibes with his decision making, but he can do some really, really electric things with the ball in his hand. He's so quick. He's got a quick first step. He hit the step back three. He's got a knack for creating separation between him and the defender when he has the ball in his hand and capitalizing on it. And so what he brings offensively is really exciting. And the way I think about it is like when he's playing with RJ and Elliot, he's going to be freed up to do some things offensively.
Right. That's right.
So, we can take advantage of that. I think he's going to be put in a really good spot. So I like where he's at with that. I do think that we need to see some growth maybe on the defensive end. And more importantly than anything, I think maybe with just decision-making and shot selection and what we're looking for. But super excited about what he brings to the table too.
What's funny is so much of what you just said in that Caleb comparison and shot making and decision making, that, or not shot making, but decision making, that kind of stuff is almost verbatim what I said on Friday's show after the first set of scrimmage videos came out from last week. And so, I think we're right there with that. I'm really curious to see when we move from scrimmage to having a summer and fall's worth of practices to working into the flow of the team play, how Ian settles into that, right? That's going to be a really interesting dynamic with all this. But I think, Pac, one thing that is very clear to me about both of these young men is this is 2 of the most ready freshmen, like ready to go right now freshmen that Carolina has had in a while. I mean, shades like along the lines of other freshmen who've just been ready to step on campus and go, like a Kobe White, like a Cole Anthony, who ironically enough they were playing against tonight. Can you are there others you would think of that you would compare them to or their readiness to? Does anybody pop to mind initially for you?
No, funny enough, Ian does give me a little bit of like Kobe White vibes. But Drake gives me Justin Jackson vibes. And I know Justin didn't play a ton as a freshman. He kind of like earned his way in. But and both of those guys were, well, not Kobe wasn't playing, but Justin was. And Ian has some Cole Anthony kind of skill set to him too. So, it's kind of funny to see those guys playing against them because there's a lot of similarities. But, in my mind, hearing you talk about them being freshman ready, that is a big change from Roy to Hubert. Like under Roy, I felt like it was pretty few and far between that we would have a freshman ready to go and contribute. And I think it was because his system was complex and it took some experience to be able to run it. Whereas Hubert has more of a, not that it's not complex, but it's more of a pro style feel, more ball screens, less traditional things that these kids are used to playing. So I think it might become more natural for Carolina to have freshmen be ready to contribute because they're stepping into a system they're more familiar with.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a little off base with that. I don't know, but that's just how I've felt. I felt like it was super rare for Roy to have a freshman come in and be ready to play and early on. But these two, you're right. They seem ready to go. And I think they're going to make a huge difference for us this season.
Yeah, one thing's for sure. Both of these young men are going to be big-time contributors, big-time rotation players. Exactly how many minutes that is, it stands to be seen. We'll wait to know on that. But I got to feel like even if they're not in the starting lineup, you got some dudes that are going to come in and cause headaches for opposition off the bench, and I love to see it. Speaking of the guys that are the starters, I want to look at who started this game because it was a very interesting dynamic, and then we'll look at that. I can't wait to talk some about the transfer guys. We haven't hit on them yet, and several other things all coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time. Going to MLB games in the summer is one of my favorite all-time experiences. The game, the food, everything that's part of being at the ballpark. I'm excited to make new memories this summer in that same vein. And thankfully, I don't have to sweat the high-priced last-minute tickets because Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. In fact, prices on the Game Time app go down the closer you get to first pitch. So with killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. For example, my Braves are playing in St. Louis, just like 4 hours away from me this week. And I looked at, there's actually a doubleheader today because they got rained out on Tuesday night. But the nightcap game, I could get lower level seats in section 144, row 13 for $9, Pack Hilby. That's probably cheaper than the food I would buy for that thing. So if you want to get in on that, go to Busch Stadium or anywhere else, check out Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with this app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Pack, I know this was just a scrimmage during camp in the middle of June, or I guess late June at this point, but it's just interesting to think about lineup combinations. The 5 starters in this game were all returners, none of the 3 freshmen and neither of the 2 transfers. And what's interesting is you had that 3-guard lineup that I think we're very interested to see if Carolina uses a lot of this year. So it was Elliot and RJ, the 2 of the 5 returning starters that Carolina has, plus Seth Trimble starting along with the Jae'Lyns. Jalen Withers and Jalen Washington were both part of that starting 5. And Pack, I know some of that may just be, hey, look, these are the guys that are experienced and returners and they know what they're doing. Let's get them out there. But there is a real world in which that combination will be either starting or on the court together at times throughout this year. What do you make of that, Pack?
Yeah, I know that there is a possibility this could potentially be the starting lineup. I personally don't foresee one without Cade Tyson in it.
I agree.
But, I think a lot of this could just be experimental. And I think that's probably what you could chalk it up to. Getting these guys time together on the court, playing together live against a obviously formidable opponent, a lot of professional players on the other team, getting them reps, developing that chemistry. What are the pros and cons of this group playing together? What do they do well? What do they not do well? And I don't know, like we said, it's a scrimmage. I don't know how much they're weighing those things and how heavily they're evaluating them, but more than likely it's, hey, these are returners. This is a different lineup. This is a different group. We're going to experiment with some things. Let's throw this together and see how you guys do out there on the court. That's kind of what I make of it.
Yeah, I'm with that. And it's interesting because then it was wholesale hockey substitution with after those 5 started, you had everyone else other than Cade Tyson. So the other, who would that have been? Zayden High, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, James Brown, and Ven-Allen Lubin all coming in, and then eventually got to Cade Tyson after that. And so I'm with you. I don't read too much into who this starting group was, but it is interesting to see. If I'm being honest, I think Jae'lyn Withers is the least likely of that to start. There's still, even in these scrimmages, both last week and this week, the decision making, we talked about Ian Jackson's decision making, just some of those decisions, some of the ball handling, things like that from Jae'lyn Withers, unfortunately for me, leaves something to be desired. And I know a scrimmage probably isn't the best suited thing for his skill set and where he really shines. Although at the same time, I would expect that athleticism to just take over sometimes. So I don't know, Pac, where are you at with what you've seen from Jae'lyn Withers in these scrimmages?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I really want for him to succeed. I want the best for him, but I just don't know, especially this is coming from a coach's perspective.
Yeah.
When you put someone on the court, you want to be able to trust them, that at the very least, they're not going to hurt you. And I don't know that you can say that about Jae'lyn Withers. Now, to be fair, he might go out there and exponentially help you. He can do some great things with his length and his athleticism, like you mentioned. He might just go off. He also could rattle off 4 turnovers. There's just so much variance that you feel like, earlier when I talked about Drake, I said, we feel like, we know what we're going to get from him. Whereas with Jae'lyn Withers, I don't feel that way. I feel like we don't know what we're going to get. We could get a crazy shot. We could get a turnover. We could get a SportsCenter top 10 dunk. It's just, who knows? But to me, that will always leave him in limbo, is, not truly being able to trust what he can do on the court. Like I said, though, I like him. I like where, his upside and his potential. I was just hoping that he would have shown more growth than he has so far.
Yep. Yeah, and there are those flashes. I mentioned that bullet pass he had to Drake for that 3 in the corner. And then literally the next possession defensively, he tied up Cole Anthony, right? But then there's other things where he's trying to lead the break and throws it away, or just some other things like that. And I think that lack of consistency as a coach would lead me to trust other guys more. And if Jay Witt could just simply be more consistent, I think it would be good things for him. Pac, I want to talk some about the transfers. We haven't really hit on them much yet, both Cade Tyson and Ven-Allen Lubin. There was a stretch in the second half where it was probably a span of 30 seconds that these teams combined for 4 straight threes. Cole Anthony hit one on one end and then came down in transition. And Cade, this is why I bring it up, Cade Tyson hits this quick trigger, quick release 3 on the wing. Followed, then Brady Manek hit one on the other end, and then Elliot Cadeau came down and hit one. Once again, Elliot shot well in this game, just like he did last week, folks. Good to see. But Cade Tyson, we didn't really see a ton from either he or Ven-Allen Lubin in this game. And I think some of that is what we talked about with those returners, right? They're still kind of learning their role and opportunities. I think some of it is like with Cade Tyson in both games so far. I've seen him kind of just allow the game to come to him. Pac, what do you feel like you've seen from Cade Tyson as well as Ven-Allen Lubin?
Cade is exactly what I thought he was going to be.
In a good way, right?
In a good way, yeah. I mean, golly, that dude can get a shot off quick, can he?
Like Brady, interestingly enough, right?
Yeah, he's a lot like Brady in the fact that what you just mentioned, he just lets the game come to him. He's out there playing ball. He's not forcing the issue. If he gets a good look, he's going to take advantage of it. He's got a quick release. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't think twice about it. He just plays ball. I think Cade, we haven't got a chance to really see a ton of this yet just because it's a scrimmage. There's not a ton of chemistry. It's not organized basketball. They're just out there playing. But Cade has already shown me he understands scoring the ball.
That's right.
I feel like he moves really well off the ball and just plays off of his teammates. And he reminds me a lot of Brady, actually. They're different in a lot of ways, but they're very similar. And I think he's going to just be a really good addition for us. And love you, Brady, but I think that Cade is probably a better defender. And so I think he's got that going for him, just a little bit more quick-footed. Ven-Allen Lubin, he's the one that seems maybe like he's still trying to get his feet wet and get adapted to everything. I think he's going to be a great addition. But he's just met these guys, and he's still trying to move in and figure out Chapel Hill and figure out how to get adapted to everything. And so I'm really not reading too much into what he can do. But I think he's going to be a great fit. He runs the floor really well, super athletic. He's going to be a key piece for us on rebounding. So I really like where he's at, and I just don't think you can read too much into the scrimmage and how it relates to how he's going to play.
I'm with you, Pac. I've thought about Ven-Allen Lubin as a jury's very much still out situation. And I say jury's still out. I don't even know that we've had opening arguments yet, if I can use that courtroom imagery, right? Like, I think you're spot on with what you said there, that he's still it's kind of like Jalen Withers last year. Remember, like, it was just Jalen was really just trying to see who he was and where he was at and what was going on. But at the same time, as I compare him to Jalen Withers, he seems like a guy that has a higher basketball IQ, is going to make good decisions and do all these things. Had a nice little finish in the lane in Tuesday's scrimmage. And so, folks, I think as Pac is saying, I will echo that and say, I don't want to rush to any kind of judgment, positive or negative, yet on Ven-Allen Lubin in determining his role. I think there's a lot yet to determine with that. Pac, a couple other conversations I want to have still yet. Number one, who has surprised us the most in these scrimmages and specifically on Tuesday? And then second, something I've noticed in both scrimmages is without an Armando Bacot anchor, nobody's touching that paint, baby. That paint is wide open, and what that could mean for the Tar Heels offensively and defensively this upcoming season. We'll get to those things in just a second. Pac, one of the things we were talking about before we started recording is just trying to think about who has surprised us a little bit, or, maybe taking some leaps and doing things that we're like, I don't know that we were really ready for yet to see. Who is someone that for you has surprised you, not only Tuesday, but in last Wednesday's scrimmage as well?
The one that really stands out to me is Zayden High. And, in particularly this past Tuesday right here where the scrimmage took place, Zayden just did some things like the little baseline jumper that he had was nice. And that's not something I felt like he had in his game last year. Last year I felt like he was more of like which I know he didn't play a ton, but he would, rebound and get putbacks and just play cleanup. But what he showed, on the baseline with that quick release and just shot it confidently was a great sign. The way he guarded Justin Jackson on a few of those possessions was encouraging. Now, there were some times that Justin just made good moves and hit tough shots like Justin does. But
exactly. You tip your cap and move on. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And Zayden stayed in front of him and contested and challenged and just did some really nice things. And I felt like when I was watching him, I could just sense the maturity and the growth that he's had. Mm-hmm. And I know that, based on some of the things that he said and posted on Twitter and everything, he's been very motivated and feels somewhat overlooked. And so maybe that's playing a big part in it. And maybe he is overlooked. After watching the scrimmage, I'm thinking he may be taking a step forward and play a bigger part in next season than what I imagined. So, and if that's the case, then guess what? That's great for Carolina. That's more depth than a player that's just growing up right before our eyes.
Yeah, which, man, is the thing we love to see. The play that impressed me most from Zayden on Tuesday was somewhere in the second half. I forget specifically when. Catches the ball on the right wing, and I forget which veteran was guarding him, but drove, spun toward the corner, like away from the basket toward the corner, and then finished through contact. And I was just like, dude, that confident move, and it was under control, right? It was a controlled spin. It was a great finish at the rim. It's just like, man, if you combine growth and more capability with like the energy and edge that he plays with, right? We all remember it's just Zayden's ready to go. Like he'll do that. And so if all of that coming together, and if it could be a story of getting that growth back, and I'll be the first to say, like, I had fully expected that Zayden would get more time this year, but not very much. And so I love to be wrong about those things, right? Like I'm supposed to speculate on what's going to happen. And when I say that a guy is probably not going to get much PT and then he just blows up, I'm happily wrong about that. And so I hope that's the case. In fact, I was talking with our buddy Riley Davis earlier on Tuesday, Pack, and he was like, hey, from that first scrimmage, what do you take away? And I was like, Zayden did some things, but it's just a scrimmage. I don't know. But for him to back it up with what he did on Tuesday, because Riley pushed back. He's like, man, I loved it. And then what he did Tuesday, I'm like, when you do that twice, Pat Kilby, there's something to it. There's something to it.
100%. And I'll tell you too, the thing I really respect about Zayden, it would have been very easy for him to transfer somewhere else that he knows he could have played. So for him to stick it out and try to get better and try to earn playing time where he committed, I respect the heck out of that. So if he can earn himself playing time, I'm all about it, just because that's such a rare thing now, that I'm in full support of it. And props to him for gutting it out, figuring out how to get better, and proving that through the first two scrimmages that we've seen.
Talking about surprises, somebody else that I'm at least encouraged to see what's happening is a little bit of Jay Wash. Obviously, he didn't play last week, but did on Tuesday. A key play that stood out to me, Pack, was he got switched on to Danny Green. 3-time NBA champ Danny Green, who, let's be fair and honest, is not the most fleet-footed of basketball players we've ever seen in our lives. But he gets switched out to DG, shuffles his feet as you want to break down to do, got out on him, stayed in front of him, and forced a tough shot that Danny missed. It's those kind of things. With Jay Wash rebounding, getting dunks. There was a night, it wasn't really a blob play, but where Cade Tyson found him just kind of slipping to the rim on a blob. They're not running like set plays as they would during the year, but found himself wide open for a dunk, just stuff like that. There were some encouraging signs from Jay Wash, and I just really, really interested to see what he's going to be this year.
Yeah, same. There's just a lot of question marks, around him from a lot of people. But I think the main thing that I took away from it was there were some rumors, last week, if he didn't play, is he injured and what's going on with that? Seeing him out on the court this week was obviously confirmation he's not. And he was moving well, very well, actually. I thought I was impressed with his mobility.
Yeah. And that's been one of the big question marks defensively. Can he get out and do it?
Yep, 100%. So seeing that was encouraging. And, there wasn't a ton to take away from what he did, but just seeing him move and get up and down the court, and I thought he was looking good. And so, I'm excited for him. I think he's in for a year where he has a chance to prove a lot of people wrong and make a statement for himself.
Once again, if that happens, we will happily eat some crow and say thank you, Jay Wash. It tasted good going down. Pack, last thing, and then we'll get out of here, is I have noticed in both of these scrimmages, last week and this week, that the paint is just wide open. There's no anchor in there, nobody hanging out. And I think in some ways we kind of hoped this would happen as just based on personnel, based on some modernization, based on no Armando Bacot. It's like that might be the best way for this team to operate, is clear out and just open up driving lanes, be able to cut, do whatever it is you need to do. And if you can keep guys away from the rim, defensively, you'd love to find a way to get some rim protection back there, but guys are going to have to guard in space defensively. What do you make of just seeing that paint wide open?
Well, I like it because we've got a lot of speed and we've got a lot of guards that can shoot the basketball. I do think eventually there's probably going to be some like Ven-Allen, Lubin post-ups and things that play to his skill set.
Yep.
But for the most part, I do anticipate it being an open paint, and the way that our guards are playing, Elliot, I love the way he's been playing in these scrimmages. He looks confident and comfortable. And so, him and RJ and Seth and Ian and Drake and then Cade Tyson with his quick release stretching the floor. I mean, I just see tons of offensive potential. And, when you get these guys playing with pace and then you give them some space too, good luck stopping them. So I'm very encouraged by seeing the space that we're playing with right now.
And you know what? You mentioning RJ's name might be the first time we've talked about him on this podcast, Pac. And I love that he has not had to dominate. He didn't try to dominate and overwhelm the scrimmage last week, nor did he this week. He made shots. He had some big plays, but he didn't assert himself in a way that said, like, I've got to be the guy with the ball in my hand all the time. And I think that makes Carolina better this year. I want him he's going to be the guy in crunch time. He's going to do everything he needs to do. But I love to see that, Pac, and I'm encouraged by that. Obviously, he'll be the dude when it's time to be the dude. But the fact that he trusts his team and is going to let him ball is awesome. Pat Kilby, any other observations or takeaways from scrimmage round 2?
I know I briefly touched on it, but just super impressed with Elliot. Really like where he's at. Like I mentioned, he's confident, he's comfortable, he's shooting the ball really well. And to me, that just wherever our ceiling was, it just got higher because of the confidence that he's shooting the ball with, if he can carry that into the season.
Did the ceiling go up to the roof? Is that what happened?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
the ceiling is the roof.
It is. So, man, great to see. And there were just those alums that played. Obviously, there were many other alums in attendance for this thing. Somebody sent me a picture of Coach Rob just sitting on the floor by Coach Roy and Miss Wanda, just hanging out the whole second half. And so it's good to see the Locked On Tar Heels family representing out there on Roy Williams court, sitting next to the namesake himself. You love to see it. All right, Pat Kilby, fun to unpack the scrimmage, folks. We'd love to hear your takeaways as you've watched this thing on YouTube. What did you like? What did you not like? Where do you think we were right? Where do you think we missed? We'd love to interact with you, whether it's in the YouTube comments, but critically on the Discord, man. That's where we're always hanging out chatting. So come find us there. If you haven't subscribed to the show, do so on audio and video. Very easy to do to make sure you don't miss an episode. If you're not part of that Locked On Tar Heels Discord, come on in. It's free to join, and the link is in the show notes. Come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We're going to talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.